Hey everybody, and welcome into Electric Bike Report. My name is Griffin, and I've got a packed episode for you today, including we're going to be taking a look at the Bentonville Bike Fest that came and went, because there's a lot of really cool tech on display there worth talking about. Not only that, but an audience member has asked the question, which fat tire e-bike is doing the best in the game when it comes to torque sensors, so we'll be breaking that down as well. Finally, a little word of advice on cargo bikes with larger diameter tires, because there's some cool handling benefits there worth discussing. All that and more in today's Weekly Recharge. All right, so as you can tell, I'm rolling solo this week. John is off and taking some well-earned R&R. But let's go ahead and jump into our fun finds of the week, as we always do to start things off. And we're starting with handlebar jack. Enjoy your ride. Handlebar jack has got you covered. Like this, prop things up. We've all done that, DIY on the side of the road, flip the bike upside down. Look at that. You can prop the handlebar up, keep it nice and clean, no scratches. Ooh, questionable though. The phone mount is still there. Phone is still in place. I don't know that I'd be risking that. I feel like some scratches could happen. But in general, kind of like this for, something you can kind of keep in the pouch, the Go pouch with you, and use when you got to use it. Okay, next up, what do we got? Cortez 1 Hernan and Cliff Bueno. Ladder bike, rolling past and vibing. Ladder bike, that's what I'm talking about. Look at that, it's right next to a bunk bed. Double-decker style. Dude, this is sweet. This is in Denver, Colorado. I want to be a part of this. This thing looks awesome. I'm always digging. I like that they get all lit up too. This guy's on a ladder. He's giving up the diamond frame. He's just going for the straight A frame. Oh, rollerblades going past too. Heck yeah. Dude, that is sweet. Okay, next up we got Ostro NYC. Trend spotting. Why stop at handlebars and cranks? Our new bike is lighter, more aerodynamic, and fits in your pocket. It also looks like it's made for a 4-year-old. Oh, he's kicking. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely gonna be lightweight. Little limited in its speed maybe, but all right, so next, Revel Bikes. Hey, we're gonna be talking about them a little bit later. Okay, how cool is this? Jordy Sala Biker is 12. Oh my goodness, look at him hop this thing. He's been doing incredible things on his Ranger for the last few months. Oh, up on the nose. Pedaling it out. Oh, that's good use of slow-mo right there. Hoppity, hoppity, hop. Gets the 180, back down. He ain't done, he's doing more. Jordy, go brother. Yeah. Dude, that is so awesome. I would kill to have like an ounce of your talent, man. That is cool stuff. Okay, next up, Nikki BMTB. Some Nirvana, and going across the paddle boards. He got 1, 2, 3, 4 deep. Looked like about halfway. Okay, second attempt. This guy got 2 paddle boards in. Oh man. So Dirt Fest in Heston, PA. Dude, this is sweet. 100, guys, just keep practicing, you'll get there eventually. I want to see you clear the whole thing. I'm gonna follow the Instagram account, see if you guys get the whole thing done. Okay, next up we got Turn Bicycles. Rain or shine, you got it all covered with the perfect kid setup. That is right, little rain shield action. Look at this kid ready for the elements. Got the little yellow rain boots on. That is awesome. Ready for all the elements. And then last but not least, we've got Jason W. Lorenz. A little canyon bike action. How sick is this frame bag? Yeah, that looked like a shroud over the bike. Didn't even look like a bag at first. Okay, what do we got? I got some tools. Tube next. CO2 and inflator, of course. And most importantly, snacks. Stay fueled, people. Closes right back up and then, pops out nice and easy. Man Alive Canyon makes really good looking bikes. Really good looking frame bag too. That is awesome. Okay, so thanks again to the team for the finds of the week. All right, let's take a look and see what's been going on in the world of bikes. Starting things off with the Bentonville Bike Fest that I mentioned before. So this is really just such an awesome place, Bentonville. If you haven't taken a look into it before, definitely go check it out. It's basically an entire town integrated with a bunch of different cycling routes and mountain biking. But what really caught my eye at this particular fest was the Arkansas Global Cycling Accelerator Program, or AGCA, which is a lot easier to say, so I'm gonna say that. Now, this is a cohort that has provided some pre-Series A companies with funding, $125,000 in grant money, and a matching, that's coming from the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, but there were matching funds donated from the Walton family of Walmart, which is of course headquartered in Bentonville, Arkansas. So it sounds like $250,000 total. It was awarded to 10 different companies with different things that different innovations and things that they were working on in the world of cycling. So some of those are products, some of them is infrastructure and different things. Here are 3 of those companies that stood out to me of interest for our audience, including Scarper. So we've talked about them before, but this is a really promising looking e-bike conversion kit. So they are a London-based company, but basically use a proprietary disc rotor that you swap out from your acoustic bike that you have now, put in the proprietary one, a couple of mounting things along the chainstay, and then you have this easily removed unit that just turns your regular bike into an e-bike like that. And then you can go straight back to an acoustic bike afterwards. So really cool looking, cool to see them get, some additional funding here. The next company up is called Lockstop. So they're already based out of Bentonville, Arkansas, but this is a cool security platform. So how it works, it's a bike lock system that attaches to existing public bike racks. So those little public things where you can do your parking. Basically, they contract with the city and then they add locks to it that you can access. You download an app, you pull up, you can use it to locate locations that are free. You pull up to the bike rack, scan a QR code, it unlocks the lock, you loop that through your bike, lock up, go to do your shopping, whatever it is you're doing, come back, scan the code again, and it will unlock. So this is really cool, and it's something I like because it's actually free for users. How it works is they get the city to pay for it, and they get some they get some additional data into how people are operating with bikes. So it helps them plan for infrastructure, what they can do to cut down on CO2 emissions, encourage more cycling. So it kind of sounds like a win-win. I like the enhanced security features, the fact that you don't have to take a bike lock with you, and you could have access to some really good, secure public parking. Sounds like a total win for me. And then last one I wanted to highlight is called Posedla. So this is a Czech company that does custom 3D printed saddles, and they are unique because they are done off of a custom mold of your butt. That is correct, unique to your butt. So how it all works, they send you an imprint kit that gets a mapping of your sit bones, and then you get further analysis done based on your BMI, your gender, your flexibility, and a couple other different criteria. And then, just to help find the ideal amount of stiffness and support that you need from your saddle. And of course, this is largely based off of performance style saddles. We're talking your road, gravel, and MTB, but there's some really cool personalization that you can do here as well. You can choose the clip color, and you even have the option to engrave something on it. So 3D printed, exactly what you need. There's a lot of really good saddles out there, but of course they are generic and not designed specifically for you. So I really love the customization and tailoring of this one. So those are just 3 companies I'm highlighting. There are more, of course, and there's just tons of stuff going on at the Bentonville Bike Fest. So check out some of the links that we'll include down below if you want to know more about all of it. So moving on to other news, we have the Specialized announcing the Turbo Levo alloy model. So we covered the Turbo Levo a couple of months ago when it first came out. They started with the S-Works and carbon model. Now we have all of the details on what they're doing for the aluminum one. So there are 2 different bikes that dropped. The base model one starts at $5,799, while the comp model starts at $7,299. Now, what I really loved seeing was that the electronics largely stayed the same. The S-Works gets a special extra bit of power, but the carbon one and the aluminum one all have the same Specialized 3.1 motor with 666 peak watts of power and 101 newton meters of torque, which is just awesome to see. And a big old 840 watt-hour battery to feed it all. In addition to that, it's a 150 rear, 160 front suspension, 12-speed drivetrain, 4-piston hydraulic brakes, a dropper post with 100 to 200 millimeters of travel, depending on the frame size you pick, and there are 6 different size frames to pick from. And really what it kind of comes down to is the base model and the comp model. It's just the niceness of those parts. Again, you're getting the same type of parts, just getting slightly better quality on the comp one. And we actually did get the comp model in for testing, so we're going to be talking about a little bit more about that later on. But again, just really cool to see a more affordable version of the Levo finally drop. And then last but not least, this is the one that I'm really happy to be reporting on. For a few weeks in a row, we were reporting nearly every single week a bike company was closing, and one of those that we reported on closing is back from the dead, and I'm talking about Revel Bikes. So it was kind of odd when they first closed down because it was just on the heels of Sea Otter, where they actually debuted 3 different models, including one EMTB. So them announcing they were shutting down just kind of felt out of left field. It basically kind of boiled down to the company had been purchased by an investment group, and then when they were unsuccessful to scale it rapidly, they looked for a buyer, and one finally emerged in the form of the original founder, Adam Miller. So as he kind of explains everything, he said, they helped us by making heavy investments in manufacturing and supply chain that built world-class infrastructure, something that I believe will benefit Revel for years to come. But they also pursued an aggressive growth at all costs model that did not align with the DNA of the brand. High inventory, high overhead, and a rigid financial structure that left little room for being nimble and adjusting to the times. So when funding dried up in a tough macro environment, the company was forced to shut its doors. When I left years ago, I thought and hoped Revel would live on and continue to thrive, but that did not happen. And then last month, I found out just a day before the public announcement that Revel was shutting its doors. The employees, the community, the customers, we were all left hanging. The news was truly devastating to me, and I poured my heart into Revel for the better part of a decade, and I couldn't just let it disappear. This wasn't something I planned on doing, but Revel means a lot. But Revel means a lot to a lot of people. I'm excited to work with our awesome team in Carbondale and Taiwan to build Revel into the best world-class mountain bike brand that we can dream up. So again, it's just really kind of nice to see after so many different closures, this one was at the brink and then it's going to be coming back around, and it's under the original owner who you just know is going to have the love and care and dedication needed to make this brand really just thrive in its own niche. So really cool stuff to see there, but that's going to do it for the headlines this week. All right, so each week we like to highlight a different bit of gear that we use. This is not a sponsored section. It's just some of the stuff that we find really helpful for bikes. Today I'm going to be talking about security, and this is the premium tier bike lock stuff here. I'm talking about the HipLock D1000. So for those who don't know, this is an anti-angle grinder lock, the type of thing. There's a lot of really cool clips floating around on social media. We even have a video on electricbikereport.com that you can check out. This thing will chew through an angle grinder before the angle grinder will chew through it. So it's kind of crazy to actually see it in action. You can actually just watch the disc just wear away, and it only cuts into it like an eighth, maybe a quarter of an inch. This is just as premium as it gets because, there's a ton of bike theft out there. It's one of the unfortunate things about life. And e-bikes that we talk about all day, every day, they are not cheap or they're not inexpensive things. They do cost a lot of money. So this is a premium tier lock at $300, which I know sounds like a lot, but it probably costs a lot less than having to replace your bike. So again, really good stuff. The anti-angle grinder properties. The other cool thing about it too is even suppose someone did want to actually cut through this thing, they have to cut through both sides because of how it's designed. This is not like the type of thing that can roll just a single part of it. So you would actually have to get through two sides. Not the type of thing that someone's going to do quickly or without making tons of noise. So hopefully it's the type of thing that will be able to keep your bike secure. Now there's a few other different things that we really like about this lock. And one of the reasons we've used this one a lot, I think we've had this one about 4 years now, I want to say. First of all, it's got this rubber coating all the way around it, so it doesn't hurt your frame or anything like that. There's also different ways to attach this to your bike. They sell different pouches, different mounting items for putting it on your frame or on a rack or something like that. Now it is, again, heavy duty, so it's a little bit heavier. It's at 4 pounds. Believe it or not, this is actually the lighter one. They sell a larger version of this, the DX1000. That one is a little bit longer. It's kind of, I think, designed actually for motorcycle use as well, but it could be good for something like fat tire e-bikes or cargo bikes, something with thicker tubing that might be a little bit harder to get around and secure it. And it only costs, I think, another $30. So again, this is just top of the line stuff. It even has Sold Secured, kind of the ranking authority on locks. It's got their diamond rating on it. So this is the type of thing that's definitely good for protecting an investment. Now, I'll leave links down in the description below if you want to check it out, but that's going to do it for this week's gear highlight. All right, now for a peek behind the curtain as to what we've got in the works here at Electric Bike Report. So as I mentioned before, we do have the specialized Turbo Levo comp alloy. I already ran through all the specs with you, but just, we've taken a couple initial rides on it. And I think what's been most impressive is just how it doesn't really feel all that much heavier compared to the carbon model that we've tested. It is 57 pounds, so it's not lightweight by EMTB standards by any means, but I've been very impressed with how balanced it kind of feels, accommodating that larger 840 watt hour battery. Just doesn't really feel too held back at all, and just been very impressed with the motor's capability and just all that you can do with it. We're going to be gathering the test data so we can do a full review soon, so make sure to subscribe if you aren't already. We'll be having that one up here in just a couple of weeks. We also got in the Trek FX Plus One. Now this bike was a big deal. We reported on it last week. It is Trek's first time using a throttle on one of their bikes. Kind of like a big deal. A lot of the longer, like we call them legacy brands, a lot of them have been slow to adopt throttles. They did it on 2 different bikes at once, one on their Electra line as well. So really kind of curious to see that. It also starts at $19.99, so more affordable than a lot of the other Trek e-bikes out there. So it could have a lot of appeal for different people. 500 watt motor, 60 Newton meters of torque. It also comes with a really cool charging dock. It's got a mount so you can put it up on the wall. Has a little LED light panel so you can just see from afar if your bike is charged up and ready to go, but it still pops off the wall so you can take it to charge, out on the, when you get to work or wherever it is. So some really cool stuff there. And of course it's a lighter weight e-bike too. Weight is in the 40s on that one. So just a lot of really appealing stuff. We'll kind of see how the test data comes back on that one. And then in terms of some videos that went live, so we actually did have our video for the best city e-bikes go live. John worked on that one. Some really cool stuff in there. I've really come to love this class more and more. I do definitely appreciate, some of the handling characteristics you get for a bike that's weighing between 40 and 50 pounds as opposed to something 60, 70, 80 pounds like on the fat tire e-bikes. But a really good mix of bikes in there. We have some that are just ultra natural and realistic, like that Trek FX, actually like, the Trek FX Plus 7. Things like that with just really cool like motors that make it feel hyper real, hyper realistic. And then we have some stuff that's got some really good power to it as well. Some stuff that can really boost you, help you just absolutely fly around. And then of course, with the lighter handling of all of these different types of bikes, just really cool, really playful, really nimble. Some good stuff worth checking out. If you're an apartment dweller and someone who has to haul a bike up a few flights of stairs, this is the type of class that's definitely going to appeal to you. So make sure to check that video out, as John did a great job on it. All right, and now for our trail system highlight of the week. So this is that segment where we take audience suggestions sometimes, or it's things that we come up with on our own, or as I kind of announced last week, I'm probably just gonna make a tour of the whole United States, try and hit every single state. Now, this week's inspiration actually came straight from one of the sources we lean on heavily. I'm talking about TrailLink, or the Rails to Trails Conservancy. They do a really good job detailing all these different places you can go and ride, do a good job of updating it. They're honestly doing the Lord's work there, so it's just really cool to see all the different places you can explore there. But I'm signed up to their weekly email blast, and they mentioned something called the Doodle Trail, which just the name just kind of like made me laugh a little bit. I was like, oh, that's cool. Sometimes I call my son Doodle when I've said dude too much and I want to change it up. So I'm going to look into that one. This ended up being kind of like one of those things that's more about quality than quantity. It's just like an 8-mile ride, but I was really blown away with the type of photos that I saw over this kind of shorter stretch as it just kind of travels between two different towns in South Carolina. And then again, turns out like the name Doodle actually had some inspiration that sounded really cool at first and then turned a little frightening. I'll kind of get into that more though. So this is, again, it's 8.5 miles of former rail bed that includes a lot of cool stuff to see. There's some like wooden bridges that you can check out. There's a lot of like really nice looking farmland. Now it is a type of trail that does cross the main roads at numerous sections, so keep that in mind as you go. And as far as I can tell, it does seem e-bike friendly, so it is the type of thing you can check out. It runs between Easley and Pickens, South Carolina. It's kind of like, looks like the northwest part of the state. It is a paved asphalt ride the entire way. And the reason it was named Doodle is because, again, it's a former rail line, but shorter segment, it went forward and then it went backwards. So apparently going backwards, like the doodle bug is what helped inspire the name. And then I was like, oh, doodle bug, that sounds adorable. No, I looked it up. That thing is frightening as hell. So it's one of those things where the camera, maybe it's not as harsh from far away, but the close-up looked a little bit creepy. It turns into like a winged like ant thing too. I don't know. I'm just learning all about different bugs. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole this week. But the rest of the town though, actually, or the rest of these two different towns just looked so cool and so charming. So again, you have like rolling farmland and scenic pastures. You can see some like horses, cows, maybe even some like donkeys while out riding. There's just lots of wooded corridors and like residential areas. The wooden bridges that I mentioned before, kind of just remnants of like, some historical sites. And then you have even like views of the Blue Ridge Mountains off in the distance, which is really cool looking to see in some of these photos. I also really like that there's a lot of older buildings that were converted into new purposes. It looked like a gas station that had been turned into a restaurant. I really like that whole like theme of like taking something old and making it new and usable again. Just seems like really cool. There's a couple of parks that you can kind of pass by. There's really cool artwork at one of these parks here in particular. And then there's like, just cool murals on buildings everywhere. It's really colorful and really decorative stuff. So again, this just seemed like a cool slice of peaceful Southern living to me, just as someone kind of going through the photos, just that really nice, like comfortable looking town vibe is kind of like the feeling that it gave to me. So again, this was a quality, not quantity. It's not the epic 80 miler we sometimes highlight, but this 8.5 mile stretch just looked like the type of thing I would love to go out and ride just to get a feel for the town. So again, remember, we are open to suggestions on places to go check out. So if you have checked out the Doodle Trail before, let me know what you thought about it. Or if you have somewhere you think we should look into next week, let us know down in the comments or at questions@electricbikereport.com. All right, now let's dive into what is my favorite section of this whole thing that we do. I'm talking questions and comments from you, our audience, because we have the best audience with the best questions and comments. So we are starting things off with a comment from Rick Mesta on last week's episode. Kind of a longer one, so stick with me. But he asks, hey guys, first, I really appreciate what you do. Your videos have been super helpful for beginners like me who are diving into the world of e-bikes. I'm an almost 50-year-old rider who recently started commuting to work by e-bike. My round trip is only 13 miles, but the Bay Area hills and mostly pavement add to the challenge. I'm 5'7" and 250 pounds, plus about 10 to 15 pounds for my work backpack. I'm looking for an e-bike that can reliably get me through at least 2 round trips without needing to recharge between days. Ideally, something lightweight-ish and under $3,000. I like that sporty look, but additional comfort would also be appreciated. I bike every other day because, man, do I feel every bump. The Aventon brand is discussed on your channel, and I am looking for similar options. I'm not necessarily looking for a fat tire bike, but the current models have better power because I think I need it. But of course, the downside is the weight of these bikes. Now here's my current ride. I'll kind of skip past over that. Let's see. The throttle is a bonus. I tried not to use it too much to save on battery, but I need it and do. It's so fun. It gets me and my body and bike's weight up to 28 miles per hour. I can only imagine this motor and battery combo on a lighter bike, or if I cut some weight from my body. Would love to hear your recommendations. Thanks again for all the great content, Rick. First of all, Rick, thank you so much for the nice words, and I am happy to help you out. So the first bike that kind of came to mind that I think checks most boxes for you was actually the Ride 1-Up Vorsa. So this is one that would not be a fat tire e-bike. The tires are a little bit wider at 2.6 inches, but it kind of has everything you're looking for. It's got that sportier look to it. It's got really good power. It's got really good comfort. There's a lot of things going on for it. So let's kind of break it down bit by bit. So it's got a higher weight capacity at 440 pounds, so it'll haul anything that you need, your body weight and gear, no problem. It's got a powerful 750 watt motor with a 1380 watt peak and 95 newton meters of torque, with a fairly sizable 720 watt hour battery. This is an SUV style of bike, so it is really versatile in terms of what you can do with it. It's going to be great if you just keep it on the road, but you can do a little bit of exploring with it as well. So this is also one of the few bikes out there that lets you pick between torque or cadence sensor options. So you were coming over from a mid-drive before. This one, again, it can be nice and easy with a cadence sensor. It can be a little bit more natural intuitive with the torque sensor. However you want to set it up, it is up to you. And you do have the ability to custom program like the motor tuning at each of those different levels as well to further kind of dial it into your preferences. This bike had great testing across the board. So the brakes, the setup was a little atypical in all honesty. It's 2-piston hydraulic brakes, had a 180 millimeter rotor up front and a 203 in the rear, but it did have a good test result average with 22 foot, 6-inch stopping distance there. The range of the bike was actually a lot better than I was expecting, to be honest with you. Between 43 and 92 miles on the torque sensing mode, so it can definitely help kind of stretch things out if you kind of tune it right. But it has, even at that higher power setting of 42 miles on class 2, 20 mile per hour speeds, keep in mind, 42 miles, that's definitely going to be able to give you a couple of days without needing to charge. And then of course its raw power was on display on the hill test. It went to the top of our test hill in 1 minute and 19 seconds, and then had a blazing 1 and 4 second time up on the pedal result, which is still one of our top 20 results across like 250 bikes at this point. So really good option for you to take a look at. Again, it's got some nicer things, an adjustable stem and like a suspension fork with 100 millimeters of travel. Just a good all-around bike. Now you had mentioned the Aventon bikes as well. Definitely ones you could take a look at. I'm a big fan of Aventon bikes in general. The Aventon Adventure is what I'm assuming you're looking at. It does have fat tires, so it would be a little bit heavier too, but again, 750 watt motor there. Just super, super smooth power delivery off of that motor. It does make you feel like enhanced basically. It's got good comfort with 80 millimeter suspension fork and 50 millimeter suspension seat post too. So again, a little bit of extra comfort built in there. And then just another really good option for you. If you want something that is lighter weight, you can look at the Level, which is kind of slimmed down in a few different areas, and a slightly smaller motor at only 500 watts of power. But again, really nice ride if you want to look at that one. And then finally, I would also throw in to consider the Velotric Nomad 2 or the Nomad 2X. So Velotric has really cemented a place in my mind as just a brand hyper-focused on comfort. They do a lot of really good things there. This particular one, it is a fat tire e-bike, but it's kind of like the swept back, almost cruiser style handlebar to it. It has an adjustable stem as well, so it makes the ride really relaxed. You can get very straight and your back upright type of posture. It does have really great power though, and like the Vorsa, it is one of the few bikes out there where you can swap between a torque or cadence sensor with lots of good power. It's also got more than 500 pound payload capacity, so you can really load that thing up as well. We're not fully done with our testing on the Velotric Nomad 2X, but that kind of just builds on everything the Nomad 2 has, adds on, even the rear suspension to it, a little bit thicker and more plush saddle. I think it might be a little bit longer in the wheelbase as well. It's very planted and stable, so a few different bike options thrown at you to go check out. And hey, please let us know which one you end up picking. I'm always very curious to see how these stories end when you guys ask us which bike to go with. So please let us know. All right, so next one up comes from FWS Sinister. This is from last week's show. It says, I'm curious what you think is the best torque sensor fat tire right now, and if it's not the X-Peak 2.0, then how it compares. So I like this question. This one was a little bit out of the box and different from the norm. So the tricky part with this one is best in the scenario is going to be subjective. That's going to be in the eye of the beholder. It's not like, in sports or in like a race or something like that, where we can say the best is the one that finished the quickest or the one that won the most things. Best is very subjective to you and what you're looking for. So for me, I kind of break things down here into 4 different buckets. It's going to come down to like the most natural feeling torque sensor, one that is very smooth and very natural, but has definitely some enhanced power to it. The third bucket I'm going to call middle of the road, between the smooth and natural, and then the fourth and final bucket, which is very easy. So again, the middle of the road, it's kind of smooth, kind of natural, but definitely enhanced. And then the very easy one, it's almost kind of like a cadence sensor at that point. It's more intuitive than natural, if that makes sense. Like most torque sensors, you push a little bit harder, you'll get more power, but it's kind of life on easy street. Just the tiniest bit of pressure and you can really get off to the races. So it's kind of like move through those buckets one at a time. So in the most natural category in terms of fat tire e-bikes, now, unsurprisingly, there's going to be a lot of mid-drive motors here because even though hub motors with torque sensors have really narrowed the gap between the sensation you get off of a mid-drive, it's still just not the same thing. Mid-drives literally augment what you do as a rider do on a bike. You help pull that chain to move that rear wheel. So it really enhances what you're doing, where the hub motor is still capable of independently spinning that wheel, trying to sync up to your effort as you pull along the drivetrain. So the mid-drives definitely dominate the most natural feeling category. So the first one that came to mind was the Borealis Keystone. Now this is like a full bore fat tire EMTB. It's very impressive. This one has the Shimano EP8 drive system. It's kind of a rarity in the world of bikes. Again, a fat tire mountain bike, but it is just very cool and very, very natural feeling. Another one that came to mind was the Turn Aurochs. Now this bike is very different. It's a fat tire cargo overlander, bike packer, e-bike equivalent of, like an off-road capable bus, basically. Like this thing is just crazy with all that you can do, but it's a cool cargo bike too. You can load up 2 kids on there, literally all the stuff you would need to take camping. It's the type of bike you can really load up, and it just has phenomenal control to it with its Bosch motor. Just makes it feel very dialed in and very smooth. And then the last one in this category was actually kind of a sleeper pick, which I was going to put the Haybike Alpha up there. So it has a 500 watt Mevice mid-drive motor, which was actually just really, really impressive. I felt that the rest of the bike had some rougher edges that needed to be smoothed down, but just in terms of pedaling around, have really, really good and natural engagement to that one. Now into the second bucket where I have smooth and powerful. Now, John's not here, but I feel fairly comfortable speaking for him. This is where John and I tend to gravitate. This would be best according to us more often than not. But again, it's very subjective and very personal. The smooth and powerful is kind of best described as, I know the bike is helping me a lot, but it almost feels like it's me doing it. It just feels like I'm on steroids, basically. So in this bucket, I would put the Aventon Adventure 3. Again, it's just an extremely well-dialed bike. It has a good sense of how to ramp up power so that your legs always feel a tiny bit of strain, but never exhausting either. You just feel, again, kind of super powerful, and it's a fun all-around fat tire bike. And also the Velotric Nomad 2 and 2X. This is a bike that does it really well, has a good power curve to it as it ramps things up. And again, that's on a very, very comfortable bike. That's, again, all-around fat tire, but pretty comfortable, focused. Now, the middle of the road, and this is probably where I would put the X-Peak that you mentioned. It is intuitive and easy to use, and I think some of the lower levels feel very natural, but definitely as you approach like pedal assist 4 or 5, that's when things start feeling quite easy. You have effortless power, you can kind of just reach higher speeds without too much exertion or effort, and that's great and that's fine. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this, but it does get almost a little bit more cadence sensor feeling, in those higher pedal assist levels, and electric as a general ethos, I suppose you could say. They even kind of believe that the floor value should be a little bit higher on e-bikes. It should feel like an e-bike. It shouldn't try to mimic a bike. And so with that, you kind of get this souped up experience. I'd put the X-Peak there. I'd also maybe put the Radster Trail here. It was a little bit surprising, but they kind of leaned into the power a little bit more on that bike than I was expecting. And that's coming off of a 3-inch fat tire bike, so it's a little more nimble, lively, and playful on that one too. And then finally, let's jump into our fourth bucket, and that is the very easy torque sensor. So this one, again, it's more intuitive. You can still push, get a little bit more power, but not super natural feeling. This does almost feel like a cadence sensor in some regards. Now into this bucket, I would put mock wheel e-bikes. Those have very strong and aggressive motors, and they can take off in a hurry. Seen that across, the Obsidian, the Basalt, even their folding bike, the Slate, it had tons of power just off the line. As soon as you push on it, you are just off to the races. So those are kind of the 4 different buckets that I would put them all into, and I hope that helps answer your question. All right, so next one comes to us from Daniel Edwards 7178, who says, as a 300-pound burly guy that wants to like e-bikes, I can't find what I would want. It needs to have fat tires, front and rear suspension, extreme long range, a minimum of 100 miles on battery alone, fast, like options of at least 35 to 40 miles per hour, cargo capacity of 150 pounds on top of my 300 pounds, lights, off-road capable, bike, trike, or reverse trike, don't matter. Just needs to meet the performance needs, basically a no holes bar, apocalypse ready, do everything bike, built like a cross-country exploration bike with pedals. Sir, what you're describing is a motorcycle. What you want is a motorcycle. So, and I'm really not fully qualified to help you there. Okay, in all seriousness though, I don't think that actually exists in the world of e-bikes, especially with the type of speed that you're talking about and the type of range. You just can't get that on a bike per se. You really are looking at something like an electric moped, electric motorcycle, or something like that. It wouldn't have pedals and wouldn't be able to be ridden in the same places you can ride bikes. That's just a whole different class of vehicle. Now, again, I don't have a lot of experience in this matter. There's tons of different stuff out there. I know that we've tested out some new bikes at the NIU brand. They had a really nice bike there, and I know that they've been doing some great things with electric mopeds and scooters, so maybe that's something that you could go check out. All right, so our next one is Jibu John from the Velotric Nomad 2X first ride review on electricbikereport.com. Comment says, so not a question about this bike, but about a Velotric product. Since they have updated so many of their bikes recently, any chance they will update the Packer one? It is a basic structure I am curious to try, but I don't want to get burned like I did on the Electric Expedition. I bought mine just a few months before the 2.0 came out. While I like the Expedition 1.0, my time with it has shown me I would want to try a mullet setup next. I find the 20-inch front wheel too harsh on impacts and bumps relative to the full-sized wheel on my regular bike. It may be a perception thing along with an interpretation of the weight of the bike and such. The Packer seems like a good halfway point between a full-size cargo bike option like the older school designs and the current crop of 20-inch cargo bikes. I like the low center of gravity that the 20-inch wheel provides as my regular bikes with a child seat, for example. Also, other bikes I am considering with the same setup are the Yuba Spicy Curry family of bikes and the Extra Cycle Swoop. Haven't seen any good and detailed reviews on either of them, but they come from well-established legacy cargo bike companies, so I trust the products are good, but a good review from you guys would be very much appreciated. So let me start things off by saying I don't have any inside information about if the Packer one is going to be updated or not. That one is getting a little bit long in the tooth, so I do think it is prime time for an upgrade. That being said, I don't actually know if it's a good seller for them. I don't know if they want to invest in a version 2.0 or if it's the type of thing that, they want to reinvent it, they just want to enhance it. I really have no clue there. If it's going to happen, I would expect it to happen soon, but we'll kind of just have to hold out and see. But however, I do love this comment. First of all, just a quick comment on Yuba and Extra Cycle. I have ridden them just the tiniest bit at trade shows and whatnot. I was highly impressed with all of the different offerings that both of those brands had. Like you said, their reputation precedes them for good reason. They make some good stuff. Hopefully we can get one into test someday. And if Yuba or Extra Cycle, if you're watching, hey, my DMs are open. By all means, let's talk about getting bikes into test. But as you were kind of like mentioning this, I did just like the overall comment because I think there is something to that. The 20-inch tires are really nice and benefit cargo bikes in a lot of different ways. That lower center of gravity feels really good, especially when you're loading up kids or if you're really stacking up cargo, as it changes that center of gravity. But it is kind of nice to have that mixed wheel setup, to have the 24-inch tire up front and a 20-inch in the rear. Kind of splits the difference for you. It gives you a little bit of enhanced comfort and stability in some ways with that larger front diameter tire, but you still get that lower center of gravity in the back. Kind of the best of both worlds. So one other bike that you could check out in the meantime is the Radio Flyer Via Pro. So This is one of those brands that doesn't get talked about a lot, but we were actually really impressed with their cargo bike. And yes, it's Radio Flyer, as in the little red wagon Radio Flyer things that we all rode around on as kids. So this one has a lot of good things going for it, including a 750 watt rear hub motor. And then, they've also got the ability to switch between torque and cadence sensors, one of the first brands we saw doing that. And then just a lot of other good things with it. In terms of its cargo bike abilities, I do love their accessories. They have a few more options than most, things like, rain canopies, some different style like grab bars and stuff for kids. So they're doing some really cool stuff there, and it's worth exploring. It's a little bit more affordable than some of the Yuba or Extra Cycle options as well, but it still has really, really good power. If I remember correctly, I think it was actually one of our best hill climbers to date. So worth checking out. Look into the bike. Let me know what you think. All right, so our next question is from Bryce Stoll off of the Aventon Level 2 review, who asks, is it possible to move the throttle to the right side of the handlebar? I would prefer the throttle on my right thumb. I also am wondering if I can make adjustments like allowing full throttle. I'm willing to lose a bit of battery life for speed, as I do not live very far from where I work. So I'm assuming with that comment, let's address the second part first. I'm assuming with that comment, full throttle meaning up to 28 miles per hour, not 20. That is not something you're able to do on the level, and legally speaking, in most places in the United States, you cannot do that, as it would exceed its Class 2 programming. So just educate yourself on your local laws if you are looking into a bike that could do that and how that affects the legality of it. Now, going back to the first part of the question, can you move the thumb throttle from the left side to the right side? Could you? Yes. Should you? Probably not. So here's the thing when it comes to that. This bike also has rapid fire trigger shifters, which are located underneath the handlebar. So when you put the thumb lever next to it, it just you're running out of real estate there. These things will kind of run into each other. Now, that's not particularly safe for some fairly obvious reasons, but even if you could space them out in such a way as to not have them conflict and run into each other, you're not going to be able to keep your hand on the grip and get your thumb to go over and reach either the throttle or the trigger shifters, depending on how you set it all up. There's just going to be too much. You'll have to take your hand off the grip entirely to operate those, which is, again, not something I would recommend or not something that is safe. So if you have any sort of physical limitation with your left hand, you're like, I really do want to have throttle and shifting on the right side, basically you need to look into changing up the shifter component or looking at a bike that has a twist grip throttle, because you can kind of house all those together next to each other. The one bike that came to my mind when I was reading this question was the Electric Express. It has an over-the-bar Shimano tourney shifter next to a sideways thumb throttle, both located on the right-hand side. I believe they do that for both the 500 and the 750. So that's one that you could look into. But again, I wouldn't look at a bike with plans of swapping a throttle from the left over to the right side if it does have that rapid-fire trigger shifter. Just not a safety risk I think you want to be taking. All right, and then this one comes to us from Jolly Rancher, who says, hi guys, I'm thinking of getting a second bike in addition to my Ride One Up Portola, which handles the hill returning from work very well. I'm looking at the Velotric Breeze and Discover 2, as well as the Euphree City Robin. The least daunting route has a long yet relentless grade of about 11% for half a mile. I don't even bother with the other two approaches due to the grade in the last couple of blocks. I pay a lot of attention to torque when selecting a bike because of the hill. I'm a 5'3" woman who has earned her 65 years. First of all, good on you. I love the way you phrase that at the very end, that you've earned your 65 years. Absolutely you have. So where you've kind of honed in on these three bikes, I'm guessing you have a good sense of them. But for other watching, I just kind of want to do a rundown of the basics of these bikes. So starting things off with the Velotric Breeze, this is a lighter weight, kind of city cruiser hybrid bike. It has a 750 watt motor, 1150 watt peak, 65 newton meters of torque, a 627 watt hour battery, 2-piston hydraulic brakes, 8-speed gearing, and it weighs just a little north of 50 pounds. It also has sensor swap tech, Apple Find My built in, and a detailed Velotric app. So the Velotric Discover 2 is in some ways kind of the bigger brother bike to this one. It's more commuter cruiser oriented. It definitely still has that cruiser DNA to it and comfort focus though. It also has a 750 watt motor, 1100 watt peak, 75 newton meters of torque, and a 706 watt hour battery. Again, 2-piston hydraulic brakes, 8-speed gearing, and many of the same features of the Breeze, but this one does come with a suspension fork with 80 millimeters of travel, and it comes standard with a rack and fenders, which the Breeze lacks. All of those extras, plus the larger battery and the like, does make it a little bit heavier though, as that one clocks in at 69 pounds. And then finally, the Euphree City Robin is in the similar vein as the Discover 2. It's more commuter and cruiser styled. It comes with a 500 watt motor, 900 watt peak, 80 newton meters of torque, 672 watt hour battery, the optional torque and cadence sensor you can swap between, slightly more travel, 100 millimeter travel from a Suntour fork. It has 7-speed gearing, 2-piston hydraulic brakes, a Suntour NCX suspension seat post, which is one of the nicer seat posts out there, I'll just add, and some nice security features like an integrated cafe wheel lock and a passcode security startup. Let's kind of break down some of their testing numbers really quickly. So on the brake test, the Breeze stopped in 21 feet 8 inches. The Discover was right there with it at 21 feet 7 inches, where the City Robin was a little on the longer side at 23 feet 7 inches, but still in what I would consider a safe stopping time. In terms of range, the Breeze, we got between 36 and 74 miles. The Discover 2 did between 41 and 85 miles, and the City Robin did between 29 and 68 miles. So the Discover has the best range overall. The Breeze is kind of just a little bit behind it, and the City Robin, it's a little on the shorter side, but actually still good usable mileage. In my opinion, is to go between 30 and nearly 70 miles. And then finally, let's look at the hill, which I know is going to be a big thing that you're honing in on. So the Breeze made it to the top of our test hill in 2 minutes and 10 seconds on throttle power only, and made it to the top in 1 minute and 21 seconds on pedal. The Discover 2 did it in 1 minute 40 on throttle and 1 minute 17 on pedal. The City Robin had the best throttle time of the bunch at 1 minute 35, and the slowest pedal time of 1 minute 29, but still all pretty good there. So kind of the more I looked at all of these, I think the performance is pretty good for all of the bikes. For me, I kind of ended up landing on 1A, 1B, and then option 2 or option 3, however that breaks down. So my 1A recommendation would be the Discover 2. It just had slightly better testing kind of across the board, and it has really good comfort and versatility to it. I do just like the style of this bike. It's got that adjustable stem, swept back handlebars. You can get very comfortable on it. I think it's got a good overall look to it as well. There's just good performance, good comfort, just a little bit of everything, and does everything pretty well. Now, the 1B in this scenario would be the Euphree City Robin for kind of some similar reasons. Again, I kind of just like that it has a little bit, it's got a lot of different features to it. Euphree is on my personal list of brands that are a little bit underrated and should probably be discussed and talked about more. They just make stellar stuff and really hone in on comfort in particular, and just like nice little quality of life add-ons. I mentioned before they have one of the nicer suspension seat posts out there. I do think it's maybe the most comfortable bike of the three that you're looking at. Nice little things like the ability to, if you get a compatible phone case, you can just mount it right to the stem, as that comes built in as well. So some really nice and extra features that kind of help push it over the top in some regards for me, but it is of course the most expensive of the three. And then finally, the Breeze. This one, I'm putting it in last on the recommendations, but it's still a great bike. If weight is a concern to you, the lightweight nature of this is really nice. It also comes with some handling benefits. In some ways, it's maybe the best handling of the bunch. It's got good performance across the board, but again, lacking some of the things that come standard with the other two, racks, fenders, and what have you. So again, I'd probably go Discover 2, 1A, Euphree City Robin, 1B, and then the Velotric Breeze. But again, very curious to know where these recommendations go. So please, follow up with us and let us know which one you end up picking. That's going to do it for questions and comments from our audience. Just a reminder, if you want yours answered next week, drop a comment in this video or send questions to us at questions@electricbikereport.com. All right, so I'm going to need some help from my camera woman, Christina, on this one, because when I snap by myself, it just sounds sad. So it's time for Deals of the Week. Deals of the Week. That extra snap was from her. Thank you, Christina. So this week is going to be a little bit different just because we are post-Memorial Day, and a lot of brands said they were going to be done selling stuff. And now I'm seeing a lot of different brands extending those sales with either vague dates about when they're going away or saying they're going to expire in a day, maybe two. So I'm just going to instead make a plug for our best pages. I'm going to leave a link down in the video description below where you can go check those out. Virtually almost every brand I'm checking through right now is extending their Memorial Day sales. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at some predominantly DTC stuff like Electric, Aventon, Rad, Machwheel, stuff like that, or even I'm seeing a Trek sale that's going on right now. Again, these are all really cool, phenomenal bikes. Anything on our best page is something we obviously recommend. And if you see that it's on sale, definitely snatch it up. Memorial Day sales prices are typically some of the best we see all year outside of Black Friday. So try and get while the getting is good on those. Electric Bike Report would simply not exist without audience support. So thank you so much, like sincerely, for watching, for reading on the website, and for sharing this with your friends. And as a way to try and help give back, each week we like to highlight a rider in our audience, someone who was out there just talking about their bike. So this week I'm highlighting Richard Galbraith, who left us a comment as a Velotric owner. He says, as a Velotric e-bike owner, I have to say that these bikes with their sensor swap make great cruiser bikes and can go anywhere, including on sand beaches, which most e-bikes can't handle. My Nomad 2 can not only ride on sand, but can accelerate and go up hills on sand. They also work well on snow and other difficult terrain and conditions. Just great bikes, try one out. I really just appreciate comments like this, especially because you talked about the sensor swap technology, which I always think is really cool that you can pick that, but I don't know how often people toggle between it, so it's kind of cool to see it being used here. But again, it is just fun to take your bike new places, to test out its capabilities, see what you can do, and just enjoy the ride along the way. So Richard, thank you so much for writing in for your comment. And as a reminder, you could be featured here next week. Just let us, keep the comments coming down below, or write in at questions at electricbikereport.com. Got through at that time, and hopefully we'll be highlighting you next week. So thank you so much for following along. And if you stuck with us this long, hey, drop us some comments. Help us forge next week's show, because again, this is all largely based off of feedback we get from you guys, where we'll answer some more questions, get into more topics, and see where it is you are riding. Don't forget, we are trying to get to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're getting very close to that goal, so appreciate your help in that regard. And if you want just the audio version of this, we are now available on Spotify, Apple Music, all those other popular places. Please subscribe to us there and leave us some ratings as well. We'd love to see that review count go up. 5 stars are always appreciated. Anyway, that's going to do it for all of us here at Electric Bike Report. This has been the Weekly Recharge.